you came all this way on the railroad?
Yeah. I left behind all those peoples.
It is absolutely excruciating at points, pretty much the whole time, to watch what Cora goes through over and over and over again. How did you sort of like physically embody that struggle in terms of like how she carries herself in South Carolina versus how she carries herself in Tennessee versus Indiana?
I think for me, I did a whole lot of preparation for the character in terms of understanding her environment, but also just plotting her journey out, her physical and vocal journey with the psychological understanding of her context. You know, it was a case of like literally saying, okay, for someone who has experienced A, B, and C, someone who is constantly in chains or, you know, hunched over a cotton field, what does that posture look like compared to someone who's in South Carolina being taught to stand up straight, to speak a particular way, whose vocab is now being opened up to beyond just English for instruction. I was very, very, very intentional about plotting those points for myself as we shot the series.
I'm curious about, you know, this show is hard to watch at points, and I'm wondering, why do you think that making space for that pain is important and like artistically essential beyond that?
I think more than anything, it's not about watching how awful or brutal it was. It's about saying we're telling a story of an experience of a group of people who since then have been told to get over the story because it happened so long ago. However, the reality is that this is still their lived reality 400 years later. And we cannot tell that story and pretend like the brutal parts didn't happen, because that is what shaped who we are. That is the generational trauma and pain that we still carry, even though we don't have the vocab to articulate it today, you know. And what I appreciate about the Underground Railroad is how they treated telling those parts of the story. Barry will, you know, better explain how the words spoken during some of the scenes, whereas in the past you see it as if it's a whipping for the sake of whipping, but you know, they'll move away from that which your imagination kind of fills in to something else that is more uplifting in the moment, even if you don't realize it, because we're trying to change this narrative of how we see our predecessors. Because again, we come to a place where it's like, no, you know what, let's just pretend it didn't happen. And that's not a good thing. And creatively, we reflect what is happening in our society. And the reality is, yes, it happened 400 years ago, but we're still seeing it happen even today. And there are numerous examples that we can give. And there are numerous parallels that we can draw from episodes in Underground Railroad that we can literally pick from in America and over just the last 2 years.
Yeah, and we as a people, I mean, like as everyone have never really like reckoned with it or come to like a real determination of like there's no apology. Do you know what I mean? Like there's no,
exactly.
It's never, there's no national monument, there's no national park, there's no, you know, we've never said this was awful, period.
This actually happened, yeah.
Speaking of that, you are from South Africa. Did working on this make you further wrestle with South Africa's history, with slavery and with oppression?
I think more than anything, with working on this, in preparing for the role, I did extensive amount of research in preparation for the role, and I had to unlearn what, you know, media had taught me in the past, because I realized that what media had taught me was controlled by a specific white gaze, which wasn't necessarily trying to educate me. And so by unlearning to learn, I realized that I've yet to do that for what I know about South Africa as well. Like the knowledge of what South Africa went through is also very limited. But I was also able to draw numerous parallels between the lived experience of the Black body here and the lived experience of the Black body in South Africa, where our democracy is about 25 years old, and I'm 30 years old. So, you know, the oppressed body there is still struggling with what actually happened very, very recently.
What's her name?